Hello, and this is Nick Kennedy, your gray man, coming to you from the lovely state of Georgia, just on the outskirts of Atlanta, which I would like to say that it's, you know, nice and sunny here and warm, but no, it's not. It's actually very cold. It's probably in the 30s, and the other day it dropped into the 20s, and I hope we don't have to repeat that again. Um, that would make my whole trip here from Boston a little bit less exciting if the weather changes here. But no, generally it's pretty nice. I can't complain. In February, I guess the average day is going to be 55 degrees, which for February, coming from Boston, I'll take it. I'll take that anytime. Anyway, tonight I want to do a review of a movie called The Creator. I heard a little bit about it. It's on Netflix. It didn't get a lot of airtime. What it stars actually John David Washington, and those of you who do not know, his father is the great Denzel Washington. He's got a really tremendous background of movies. No, we couldn't possibly get into it now. There's too many to talk about. Maybe another show. But anyway, so his son, who it's got to be, geez, 39 now, and he's done a few movies. He did Tenet. He did Black Klansman, Black KKK Klansman, I think. I saw that movie too. That was pretty good, actually. So he's in it. He played football. He got drafted by the Rams. Don't know if he stayed there very long or even had a snap. But hey, just get signed by them is good. And I do know he played in some leagues that weren't the NFL, but I think they were either pro or semi-pro. So he was a good athlete. Is a good athlete still. He's only 39. So yeah. Anyway, and it also has Gemma Chan, who, if you guys have seen the TV show Humans that was on a few years ago, and she was also in that horrible movie, The Eternals. Less said, the better, I think, with that one. But I like her. I think she's got some talent. She's certainly easy on the eyes. So this is good. A lot of critics didn't really have a lot of great things to say about this movie. So I kind of went in there not expecting much. And to be honest with you, flat off the top, I got to tell you, I liked it more than they did. I think IMDb gave it something like 6.5 out of 10. I find this to be kind of a throwback to the action movies of the 80s and 90s. For those of you who know me, know that I was working in movie theaters as projectionist and other capacities quite a few years back in the day. And yeah, it reminds me kind of like out of the Alien movies, and maybe a little bit of Terminator, and a little bit. So it was an action. It was an action movie, and it did keep you thinking. And at times it was kind of predictable, but it did the job. So let's talk a little bit about it. It was directed by a gentleman that I really don't know all that much about, Gareth Edwards. He did a movie also, I think John David Washington might have been in it as well, called Monster, which I plan to see because I did like his work in this movie a lot, actually. I like the shots, the cinematography I thought was very good. I like the action scenes. There was a couple that were a little long for me. I'm not really big into movies that have 15, 20 minutes of car crashes. But I do like them when they add to the movie and they don't do a lot of overkill. And I think there was a nice little touch of that. I think he also might have helped write the script too, which is very important. You gotta, if you got, what Bill Parcells used to say, if you're gonna make the meal, you should be able to go out and buy the groceries. So anyway. So yeah, I liked the overall feel of the movie. I liked the characters. One of the things I thought was very refreshing was, in nowadays, and I've touched on this before, one of the gripes I have is that this strong female character, which is not to say that I'm against strong female characters, because I completely, I'm fine with it. I like them. The problem is when for some reason the writers or the director or both decide they can't be all that important and tough unless it's at the expense of a man. It reminds me when I was in college way back when, that I knew a girl, a woman, I guess, back then. I mean, 19, 20 years old, sure. And she was okay. I mean, she was no Einstein, but she was fine. I mean, intelligence wise, she did, probably B's. That, solid. And a nice enough person, I guess. But when she was at parties, I noticed that she would try to find people that say they didn't go to college or maybe didn't know her studies, and would, kind of embarrass them. Like, oh, I'm taking, English literature of the 18th century. Who are your favorite authors or poets? And, the person would be like, I don't know. And it kind of bothered me. And I think that in a way, that's what kind of movies are doing now, is they want to raise up the woman at the expense of the man. And I don't really see why that has to happen. I mean, they could be, mutually exclusive. The woman can be big and strong and tough, and the man can be too. And I think this movie does that very well. Yes, the main hero is John David Washington. He does a great job. And by the way, it's kind of eerie. Not just the sound of his voice, but his mannerisms. If you're familiar with Denzel, just like the pattern, the rhythm, you'd almost swear at times it was Denzel talking. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying is, so these were a couple of good characters. Actually, there's more than one. There was a few strong women in this, and then there was a few strong men in it too. And they were at basically war with AIs, kind of like the doom of the Terminator movies. But anyway, kind of getting off that. So what I was pleasant to see was a tough man and tough women working together for a common goal, and not having the man to be either stupid, incompetent, or both, or evil. Of course, he could also be evil, stupid, and incompetent. I've seen that as well. So no, it was nice. I mean, you could enjoy all the characters and believe in them, and not feel like somebody's going to screw up, like Gilligan's Island. But anyway, so there was that. And I also liked the idea that although you kind of knew where it was going to kind of go at places, it's still, it has tendencies of using some tropes that we've seen before, but not so much that you knew how things would end. I never honestly felt as though I knew where this movie was going to go. But I did kind of see the general direction, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure when, I first saw the Terminator, the original one, 1984, it's on a date with a woman, and I got her in there. She didn't want to see it, but it was great. But yeah, I mean, you could kind of know from the beginning of that movie where it was headed. And a lot of the movies, it's not so matter they have to surprise you. But sometimes watching the journey, even know where you kind of going to end up, is fun. And there's enough wrinkles in this that I didn't feel it was predictable. I have to admit, I was really baffled. I stopped the movie with probably like 20 minutes left, or maybe a little bit more, and trying to figure out if I knew how it would end, and I did not. So it's not that predictable. But no, it was great. The one thing I will say about it that confused me is that they do have a tendency here of jumping around, and it kind of like certainly not as much, and certainly not as well as Pulp Fiction. I mean, he was the master of that. But they do actually jump from scene to scene. And it might be because maybe a lot of the scenes are dark. You can kind of see from this, it's kind of a kind of a dark dreary movie at times, kind of like with the Alien movies, only not quite as much. But I found that when they flashed, they weren't clearly defined. And a couple of times I wasn't sure what part of the movie was I watching, because they might be, here and now they're there. And it's wondering, well, are we supposed to assume they got there, or is this a flashback or a fast forward? It wasn't a huge deal. It's a trifling matter, but it was one thing that I had. I did it a couple of times, stop and figure, what am I watching right now? But, I mean, I think Gareth Edwards is relatively new. That's right, he did Rogue One too. I've got to mention that, and that might have been, honestly, of the recent Star Wars movies, that might have been the best. I'm not saying best, the most watchable, shall we say? I mean, I go way back from Star Wars at the very beginning. I, waited in line to watch the original Star Wars. I won't call it A New Hope because it wasn't called A New Hope. That was some, label given onto it to people who have to label things. It was Star Wars, and I watched it many times. But anyway, getting off that, I think Rogue One might have been the best movie, since they got bought out by Disney. But anyway. So that's just pretty much about it. I would recommend that if you get a chance to see it, it's not groundbreaking. Special effects are very good. No bad CGI. There's a lot of real life action in it. So it's nothing unbelievable. Like I said, if you put this on with the same mindset that you walked in to watch, any of those 80s action movies, The Running Man per se, or any of the, what was that other one? Oh, I'm thinking of, the remake they did. Why am I drawing a blank on this? Total Recall. Yeah, if you're watching it with a Total Recall or Predator or something like that, I think you'll get a nice surprise. There's a child in it, and a lot of times children have a tendency to overact. And I got to tell you, I think this child really did a good job. Didn't try to take over the movie. Highly watchable. I would think this is probably her first movie, and if it is, great. But a nice start. But anyway, so there it is. I mean, if I was going to give it, the ratings that they give it on IMDb, they give it, I think, 6.5, which I thought was. I'd give it a 7.5. I might even go with 7.7. But it's highly watchable if you like those action movies. So anyway, that's it. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share. And please come again. And I thank you. I hope it was good for you too. And I will talk to you later. This is Nick Kennedy, a gray man, saying goodbye.